Yang Kai had never seen this ring before, and it was certain that Yang Yan did not have such an artifact before. This artifact appeared out of thin air, and Yang Kai couldn't see its grade at a glance, which made him extremely surprised. Even if it is a void grade high-rank artifact, Yang Kai can distinguish one or two with his eyesight. Could it be that this ring is a void king grade artifact? With this thought, Yang Kai was startled. After another moment, everything suddenly returned to calm, and the abnormal changes between heaven and earth disappeared without a trace at this moment. But the first layer of blazing flowing flame sand field that made all the cultivators of the shadowed star frightened no longer exists, leaving only the dry and dark red ground in place, which is shocking. Yang Yan slowly opened her eyes. Yang Kai was about to open his mouth to call out, but suddenly found a strange feeling in her beautiful eyes, immediately stared, and squinting at her. Yang Yan played with the ring in her hand, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It seemed that she had recovered something precious and was extremely happy. Immediately, she stretched out a bright arm and put the ring on her wrist. The light flashed, and the ring quickly became smaller. It happened to fit on her white wrist. Yang Yan shook happily again, revealing a touch of satisfaction on her face. Yang Kai. Standing in the air, she suddenly raised her head and called out. Yang Kai did not respond, but stared at her more and more carefully, because Yang Yan at this moment, although her appearance had not changed, gave him a completely unfamiliar feeling. It seemed that she had become another person, which made him a little uneasy. Although he didn't know why Yang Yan had such a change, he definitely had nothing to do with what happened just now. Compared with why the first layer of blazing area in the flowing flame sand field which disappeared. He wanted to know more about what happened to Yang Yan. She didn't care about his silence. Yang Yan stroked the hair in her ear, and said softly, "I know who I am." "Who are you?" Yang cheerful asked. "I am the Star Emperor." A hint of pride flashed across Yang Yan's face, her slender neck was slightly raised, and a graceful and luxurious aura swayed away leisurely. This kind of temperament shouldn't appear in a timid woman at all, but after it appears at this moment, it is extremely natural, as if it is Yang Yan's innate possession, looking intimidating to others, and involuntarily giving birth to a sense of humbleness. Even a strong person in the Void King realm does not necessarily have such a temperament. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. Nodding slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly, and suddenly his figure shook, disappearing from where he was when he reappeared. He has come to Yang Yan. Under her stunned gaze, Yang Kai bent a finger and hit her forehead fiercely. With a soft thud, Yang Yan exclaimed, covering her forehead with both hands. The beautiful eyes were filled with a layer of mist. Looking at Yang Kai grievedly, that graceful and noble temperament seemed to be instantly crushed by this finger, disappearing without a trace. "You're the Starry Sky Great Emperor, right?" Yang Kai gritted his teeth and looked at her, stretched out a hand, squeezed Yang Yan's cheeks, and pulled it to the side. "What are you doing?" Yang Yan seemed stunned, her mouth was a little deformed, and she couldn't speak clearly. "What do you say I am doing?" Yang Kai smiled happily, pulling even harder. "You let me go." Yang Yan kept crying, beautiful eyes staring at Yang Kai. "Hurry up, don't think I dare not do anything to you. When my body wakes up, I want you to look good." "Wait for your body to wake up, right?" Yang Kai also stretched out his other hand and pinched the other side of Yang Yan's face. In an instant, Yang Yan's expression became distorted. Her expression was good and funny, and she slapped towards Yang Kai with a look of lawlessness. Yang Kai was still unmoved, and ravaged her vigorously. Yang Yan's tears came out. Suddenly, Yang Kai's expression moved and he turned his head to look into the distance. At the same time, Yang Yan's movements also stopped. The two looked at each other, and at the same time, they swayed and disappeared in place. In the spiritual mind exploration of the two, countless people from all directions were quickly approaching here, obviously because of the change of the heaven and earth just now. After Yang Kai and Yang Yan disappeared, it took about half a cup of tea time. A dozen lights of different colors flew here from different directions. When they came to the periphery of flowing flame sand field, they all saw the scene before them. They were all dumbfounded, with a strange look on their faces. The blazing area that had existed on the shadowed star for tens of thousands of years had disappeared. These cultivators involuntarily wiped their eyes, wanting to confirm whether they were dazzled. What shocked them was that the first layer of blazing area really disappeared so strangely. For a time, everyone was shocked, and quickly took out the communication compass, one after another, to pass on the message, but as time passed, more and more cultivators rushed to this place, all looking around blankly. After hundreds of cultivators gathered here, everyone briefly discussed and decided to explore inside. After all, the first layer of blazing area had disappeared, which means that the second layer of genius treasure area is unimpeded. If they enter it, it will be very rewarding. But what disappointed them was that after several days of searching and rushing, no one had achieved any gains in the original second layer genius treasure zone. All the spirit grass of magical medicines that should have existed here disappeared along with the blazing area. Without a trace, don't know where it went. And just when these people broke into the second layer genius treasure area, Xianxia and Yang had already reached the fourth layer towering mountains. Being able to reach here is not because Xianxia used the Star Emperor token, but because Yang opened the way in front of them. It is also magical. The third layer of blazing area is much more powerful than the first layer, but when Yang passes by, the heat waves and flames are all separated independently, as if they have spirituality, and they dare not block them the slightest. The two went deep along the way, without encountering any danger. Looking at the Chonglu pavilions looming in the clouds and mist, Yang showed a trace of nostalgia. That is the site of Supreme Profound Sect. Supreme Profound Sect ruins. Xianxia raised his brows, turned to look at her and asked, "It has something to do with you? You can say yes or no." Yang frowned slightly. "Why do you say this?" "It's the sect that the Starry Sky Great Emperor had readily supported back then." "Aren't you the Star Emperor?" Xianxia raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Yang curled her lips. "I am me, and Starry Sky Great Emperor is Starry Sky Great Emperor. Although we have some relations, I cannot represent the Great Emperor." "Oh." Xianxia was even more interested. He had never doubted what Yang said. After all, he had suspected that there might be some connection between Flowing Flame Sandfield and the Star Emperor, otherwise he would not find a Star Emperor token in the attic on the 6th floor at that time. Yang was also unconscious when the Emperor Garden is born. When Xianxia was awakening Yang divine consciousness, he had witnessed many incredible things in her knowledge sea. Now she took herself into the Flowing Flame Sands with ease. Combined with this kind of information, Yang said that she was the Great Emperor of Starry Sky, so it was not too shocking. Even with a little anxiety and hesitation in his heart, Xianxia chose to believe in Yang. After a long silence, Yang said, "Wisp of Spirit, have you heard that?" Xianxia nodded. "I can be regarded as a spirit clone of the Great Emperor. For some reasons, the Great Emperor's body is still asleep. The artifact refining and formation methods I master are all inherited from the Great Emperor." "Why is she sleeping?" Xianxia raised his brows, and he was not curious about that wisp of spirit because he also had a spirit clone himself, which was the secret technique spied from the golden blood of the great demon god. The spirit clone was forced to enter the space law formation built by the ghost ancestor when he was on the floating continent to inquire about the situation inside. As a result, his vitality was greatly injured and he was almost wiped out. But after so many years of nourishment, the wisp of spirit has long since recovered, and it is stronger than before. It's just that Xianxia has been unable to find a carrier to use this spirit clone. She seems to be injured." Yang said astonishingly. "The Great Emperor will also get hurt." Xianxia was startled. "What happened to the Great Emperor? Of course she also has enemies. The strength of that enemy is not weaker than her." "I don't know the specific situation. The memory inherited from the body is a bit incomplete. I only remembered it after I got here, but it should be after the two people fight. The Great Emperor fell into a deep sleep, and now tens of thousands of years have passed. Yang Yan slowly shook her head. My strength is too low, and I don't know much. Only after my strength has improved can the information called out one by one. Where is that enemy? Yang Kai asked. Probably dead, Yang Yan replied uncertainly. Then this circle. Yang Kai looked at the bright red circle on her wrist thoughtfully. One of the 3 flaming fire rings of the great emperor's artifacts. I can collect it. Yang Yan smiled slightly. The 3rd and 5th layer of blazing areas are all transformed by 3 flaming fire rings. It's a pity that I don't have enough strength to reclaim it for my own use for the time being. Even in the 1st ring, I can't mobilize much power. Yang Kai was secretly frightened. Don't look at him before daring to ravage Yang Yan. It was because he had been with Yang Yan for too long and was familiar with her. But if the emperor's real body was here, Yang Kai guessed that he wouldn't even think about doing it. How could the emperor's majesty be easily offended? And this so-called 3 flaming fire rings is just a secret treasure of the great emperor, and it has become a forbidden place for the shadowed star when it lives here. How strong should the great emperor be? Such a person could still be injured. Who would be her enemy? What made Yang Kai even more unbelievable was that this great emperor who was spread throughout the star territory was actually a woman. If this secret is spread, I'm afraid it will make countless men ashamed to death. But in this way, Yang Kai suddenly understood. No wonder a woman's jade palm appeared when Flowing Flame Sandfield was closed. In the Emperor Garden, Yang Kai saw the jade palm for the 2nd time. When he think about it this way, it should have been left by the great emperor secret technique. After all, whether it is Flowing Flame Sandfield or the Emperor Garden, strictly speaking, it is the property of the great emperor. With the great emperor's divine ability, it is not unusual to be able to do this. To be continued.